This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV shows.
Almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Geez, if anybody doesn't believe in the paranormal, all they have to do is watch the different news networks, especially the ones on the cable news channels. Just can't believe it. You know, there's more cyber hacking going on there than anywhere else. Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, Radio X, across Europe, and the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My guest this hour is David S. Brody. He is a Boston Globe best-selling fiction writer and author of 9 novels, a graduate of Tufts University and Georgetown Law School. He is a former director of the New England Antiquities Research Association and is an avid researcher in the subject of pre-Columbian exploration of America. He has been frequently appearing as a guest expert on documentaries airing on the History Channel, Travel Channel, PBS, and Discovery Channel. All 6 books in his Templars in America series have been Kindle Top 10 bestsellers. He resides in Westford, Massachusetts with his wife and 2 daughters. And we're going to be talking to Dave tonight about his recent novel, Echoes of Atlantis. And, during the commercial breaks and after the show, you can visit his website at www.davidbrodybooks.com. And David, welcome to the X-Zone. Great having you with us. Congratulations on all your successes.
Oh, thank you, Rob. I appreciate you having me on as a guest tonight.
Tell us about Atlantis. You know, I'm sure there's people listening tonight who have said, I've heard about Atlantis, but I need to know more about it. So if you could take us, using your researcher and your explorer hat on, what is Atlantis?
Sure. Right. Well, that's exactly the path I took when I sat down to decide whether I wanted to write a novel about Atlantis. I mean, we all have heard the legends and the Disney movies and maybe the Edgar Cayce psychic encounters and whatever, but the question always has been in my mind, that did it really exist? And if so, where was it? Where did it go? How do we prove it? Is there any possibility, is there any evidence today that we can uncover, 12,000 years later or whatever, that will show? this is the lawyer in me, the lawyer
Yeah.
training. I'm looking for evidence to build a case. And to be honest, I didn't really think there would be enough to write a whole novel about. I mean, I sort of felt like there was just going to be a few little things, and in the end it was going to putter out. And I was able to find a number of different pieces of evidence, and I had to cobble them together from different disciplines. There wasn't enough evidence just geological. There wasn't enough biological. There wasn't enough historical. There wasn't enough archaeological. But there were little pieces of evidence I could take from each of those fields and, again, cobble together a pretty compelling case that at some point, maybe 12,000 years ago, there was some kind of advanced civilization in the middle of the Atlantic that, as Plato said, disappeared in a heartbeat, and that whole advanced civilization was lost.
Why is it that Plato's words, and he's the only one who ever talked about Atlantis. Nobody talked about Atlantis before Plato, and yet those words have remained in throughout history and through antiquity to this very day. How come?
Well, first of all, Plato is considered one of the great thinkers of all time. So, the old E.F. Hutton commercial, maybe I'm aging myself. When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. When Plato talks, people listen, I think is what it is. But you're right. He was really the first one and really the only one to talk about it. But he was very specific in two things. He dated it very specifically at 11,600 years before present. And secondly, he's placed it out in the Atlantic outside the Straits of Gibraltar, the Pillars of Hercules, and on the way to another opposite continent, which surrounds the true ocean. In other words, on the way to America, which on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. And so the first thing I did is look at that date, the 11,600 before present date. It's not a arbitrary date. Obviously, he picked a specific date.
Yeah.
And it turns out that coincides really nicely with something called the end of the Younger Dryas cooling period. We had the Ice Age, and then things warmed up, and then things around 15,000 B before present, and then things got cold again in the Younger Dryas. So it's like a second Ice Age. And then right at 11,600 years ago, just as Plato dated the fall of Atlantis, something catastrophic and cataclysmic happened that caused that Ice Age to end.
All right, let's hold it right there because I've got to take my commercial break. Exonation, David Brody is our guest. He is the author of a book about Atlantis, Echoes of Atlantis. His website is www.davidbrodybooks.com. And David and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue talking about Atlantis right here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? I'm Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, and on The Secret to Everything, we will merge the practical with open investigation into all realms of the mysterious. We will talk to cutting-edge alternative health practitioners, those who inspire and motivate you in business and life, and of course, we will share stories of the paranormal, conspiracy, and cryptozoology. You will transform because of the frequency I carry, the frequencies my guests carry. Life may never be the same after you listen to this program, for the secret to everything is for you, the listener, for those who desire more in every area of their lives and believe that it can still be found. Listen and discover thesecrettoeverything.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Exonation, David Brody is my special guest this hour, talking about Atlantis, one of my favorite topics. David is the author of the most recent novel entitled Echoes of Atlantis, and his website is davidbrodybooks.com. David, before we went to the commercial break, you and I were talking about Plato, how he started talking about Atlantis, and you being a lawyer and a researcher and an explorer, took the number of years that Plato said Atlantis kind of disappeared, and you did some great detective work there.
Right. So Plato said, just so listeners understand, his exact words, there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared in the depths of the sea. Okay. So, and he dates that at 11,600 years before present. So that sounds like some kind of cataclysmic event to me.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, we have the end of something called the Younger Dryas cooling period. All of a sudden, at 11,600 BP, we have this spike of temperature ending the Ice Age. So I think it's an easy conclusion to draw that some kind of cataclysmic event occurred, perhaps an asteroid strike or a meteorite, that did two things. One, it unleashed these massive floods, which Plato talked about. And then secondly, some kind of release of energy that caused the temperatures to rise. You know, picture a ball of fire hitting the earth, melting the ice caps. We have floods. We have warming. We have volcanic activity, seismic activity. All the things that Plato talked about also would cause this rise in temperature. But more importantly, for our purposes, it would have wiped out this continent or island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
But let me ask you this, Counselor.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. If Plato reported this cataclysmic event that affected Atlantis, are there any other historical writings in the same era as the alleged date of the disappearance of Atlantis to collaborate the claims of a cataclysmic event as portrayed as spoken about by Plato.
Sure, and earlier in the first segment we talked about how the trail is cold. We're talking 12,000 years ago, so there's only so many historical sources, but there are more sources than just Plato. So, for example, there's a Sumerian legend from 3500 BCE, quote, "Before the stars were born, before people built great cities, the great mountain Atlan, Atlen, shook and bled fiery blood. The land all around burned, many animals and people died." So we have that same ATL root as Atlantis, we have it Atlan. Okay, so it's a very similar thing to what Plato said. And this is the Sumerian speaking almost 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, but this last person said before the stars. That didn't kind of make sense to me.
The Sumerian legend, before the stars were born, yes.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, it wasn't. I mean, it didn't happen before the universe occurred.
Yeah.
So I think that's legends oftentimes are exaggerations of truth.
Well, let me ask you this then. Is there any connection between the sinking of Atlantis and the Great Flood as talked about in the Bible?
Possibly. I think the Great Flood happened a little later than that. We're not sure of the dating of the Old Testament, of course, but the account from Plato and also some other evidence that we see in Central America indicates it wasn't just a flood. It was also earthquakes and volcanoes and whatnot. It almost sounds like, some kind of volcanic eruption in addition to the flood, or probably maybe even causing the flood. So it's possible that the Great Flood in the Bible is the same as this, but I think they're two different events. You would ask earlier about other sources. There's Sanskrit writings from ancient India also describe an island called Atala. Again, we have that ATL root again. And they describe it as being off the western shore of Africa with many cities and an advanced civilization that burned and sank to the bottom of the Atlantic. So we do have other sources besides Plato, ancient sources, that talk about some kind of advanced civilization out in the middle of the Atlantic.
But how come we only give any credence to the story from Plato? These other examples that you gave us, many people have never heard of before.
I don't think we don't give credence. I think we just, we're Western thinkers, and so we look at Western sources. These corroborate. This is the type of thing, as a lawyer, I'm going to go to the jury with evidence, and it's always good if I can corroborate that evidence with other sources, not just one eyewitness, but also a second eyewitness and some forensic evidence and some circumstantial evidence. The more you can do. And the reason I went ahead to write this novel is I found evidence that sort of indicated something had gone on, and then it was a question of, are there more pieces of evidence, and do they fit into the connect the dots thing that I'd drawn already, the conclusions I'd drawn? If I was right, the new evidence should fit, and if I was wrong, the new evidence would be an outlier, and I'd have to revise my theory, or I was on the wrong track entirely. And I found more and more that even since I wrote the book, even evidence that's come in later has been right on the line that we thought it would be.
Wow.
So it's really been a satisfying thing to sort of have confirmation that we might be on the right track here.
With all the technology that we have available to us these days, has there ever been any evidence of Atlantis found by modern-day explorers and expeditions?
In the 1930s, a U.S. Geological Survey, a scientist by the name of, and I love his name, Charles Pigott, and you see a picture of him. He's got his little pipe, and he looks very official. He's an Ivy League educated. In 1936, he did, on behalf of the U.S. Geological Survey, they did deep core soundings along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And the result showed sediment deposits on both sides of the ridge, moving in opposite directions, and most importantly, volcanic ash on both slopes that dated to 12,000 years ago. So right where Plato says we have this volcanic eruption of some kind, the island sank, we've got volcanic ash, which obviously would not exist underwater unless at that time the ridge was above the water surface. Also down there, they found beach sand and freshwater fossils along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And so that's where I think that Atlantis is. If you look at a topographical map of the Atlantic Ocean, there's a ridge that runs like a snake right through the heart of it. It sort of starts at Iceland, and it comes down and it picks up islands like the Azores and St. Peter and St. Paul Island off of Brazil. but there's a snake-like ridge that's much higher than the deep parts of the Atlantic that looks like that's where Atlantis would have been located.
What would be the significance of the finding of Atlantis in today's society?
I'm not sure it would have any specific significance. I think everybody is fascinated by our history. And I know the first thing that I had to sort of get past was this whole idea that at a time when everyone on Earth is running around, grunting, hitting each over the head with clubs, had not invented the wheel, had not invented written language, but at that time somehow there was an advanced civilization. Okay, how is that possible? And then I thought about it, and I said, well, let's turn that around and say, here we are today, and we go to the moon, and we have artificial hearts, and we split the atom, and yet there are pockets of civilization on the Earth today that are still Stone Age. They are still living no differently than they did 50,000 years ago. There's a tribe on an island off of India, and they still to this day do not understand the causal relationship between sexual intercourse and procreation. Okay, so there's still people who are living no different than they did 50,000 years ago. So if that's true today, isn't it also possible that 12,000 years ago there was one civilization that sort of bubbled up ahead of everybody else and was far more advanced, and then they were wiped out?
But where would they get that knowledge from?
Knowledge, when we're talking about knowledge, we're talking about science and we're talking about art.
Mm-hmm.
And those are both a product of societies that have leisure time. So if we think about Atlantis being in the middle of the Atlantic, along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, say south of Iceland, anyone who's been to Iceland understands it's a very temperate climate, even though it's called Iceland. The help me on this, Rob. The winds that come up, not the trade winds, but the
jet stream.
The jet stream. Thank you. The jet stream comes up through the Atlantic, and it keeps Iceland very warm. And so something that would have been south of that, say 12,000 years ago, would have had an amazingly temperate climate at a time when other parts of the Earth were going through the Ice Age. That would have allowed them to trade profitably, and that would have created the leisure time needed to do things like science and art and other advancements in society. And that's what leads to technology and civilization.
But wouldn't it be worthwhile for a modern-day expedition to go back to the location that was found in the 1930s using our modern-day technology, using our ROVs, using manned subs, using side-scan sonar to establish whether or not Atlantis is actually there? Because if they were that advanced, who knows what we could discover there that would help us in our world today?
I 100% agree with you, Rob, that would be a fascinating expedition. I do think it's a mistake if we think when we talk about advanced. I don't think these are people who were quite flying machines and who were more advanced than we are. I think when we're talking advanced for that time period. Again, this is at a time before the wheel was invented. So think about advanced being about equal to what the Romans were able to do 2,000 years ago. And that's what we're talking about, being able to build with stone, the wheel, husbandry, agriculture.
Like the Egyptians with the
water
pyramids.
Supply, that kind of stuff. Right about where the Romans were 2,000 years ago. Metallurgy, of course, would have been very important.
Yep.
The people who were hunter-gatherers, the kinds of things that the Romans did 2,000 years ago would have seemed incredibly advanced.
Well, I've learned...
So again, I don't think we're talking advanced to today's level, but compared to everyone else around them, it would have been light years ahead.
Something I've learned doing this show the number of years that I've done. History lies, archaeology lies, and science lies.
Agree.
Because, God, I've got grandchildren who are still being taught in school that Columbus discovered America.
Right, and before I wrote the book on Atlantis, I wrote 5 other novels about other groups of people coming to North America before Columbus.
Yep.
Whoever it is, whether it's the Scots or the Phoenicians
Vikings.
or the Druids or, of course, the Norse, the Vikings. But, yes, waves of explorers coming across the Atlantic. I 100% agree with you. My
favorite group was the Irish monks who turned right when they should have turned left and gone to the next pub.
My book before Echoes of Atlantis was called The Isaac Question, and it turns on the stone chambers and other artifacts in New England that seem to indicate Brendan the Navigator, Irish monks, coming across the North Atlantic about 550 A.D. Just as Tim Severance did reenacted that in a leather boat coming across from Ireland to, I believe, to Labrador or Newfoundland back in the 1970s.
And now there's even speculation, and they've nearly proved that China was over to the Americas before, about the same time as the Vikings and as the Irish. So what the heck?
So the book you're talking, I think, is Gavin Menzies' book 1421, where he makes the argument that the Chinese had an advanced fleet that came all the way across and explored, basically circumnavigated the world. And it's a fascinating possibility as well.
Stead, my friend, you and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation. David Brody is our special guest. He's the author of Echoes of Atlantis. His website, davidbrodybooks.com. And we'll be back on the other side talking more about Atlantis. And who knows, we may get into some other very interesting topics. It's a hunch. I'm not a psychic. Mind you, I know you were going to say that. We'll be back. Don't go away. Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV shows.
Almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Nemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created Nemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere, Florida. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine such as hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining rooms can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you visit, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic downtown Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, Old Florida cuisine at its best.
Exonation, before we get back to my guest, I have some exciting news that I would love to share with you, but I can't. Well, not right now I can't. As we get closer to May the 1st, I've got some great news. I had a good conversation today with a good friend of mine. His first name is Steve. That's all I'm going to tell you. And those of you who have been listening to our show and watching our TV programs know who I'm talking about. Let me just say this. By May the 1st, the X-Zone radio show and the X-Zone TV show is going to be on a number of cruise lines around the world, on oil rigs around the world, and a new satellite network around the world. We're growing, thanks to you, the members of the X-Zone Nation. My guest this hour is David Brody. He's the author of Echoes of Atlantis. His website is davidbrodybooks.com. And Dave, you and I were talking off air during the last news break about different things, and you talked about eels. And I said, wait, we've got to talk about this on air. So go ahead.
Right. So I mentioned earlier that if we're going to find evidence of ancient continent of Atlantis 12,000 years ago, the trail is cold, and whatever evidence there is, most of it's buried at the bottom of the Atlantic. So it's going to be one of those cobbling together an argument, and we talked a little bit about some historical sources and some geological sources, and I've got some maps, some ancient cartography that indicates a landmass in the middle of the Atlantic. But I turned to biology at one point, and I was really fascinated to learn about eels. So eels are a freshwater animal, and most people know here in North America, they live in ponds and lakes near the East Coast. Mm-hmm. And what happens is when they grow to adulthood at the age of about 15 or 20 years old, they get to be 5 or 6 feet long, and they swim down the streams and into the ocean. And they swim out east towards the continental ridge, and then they head south, and they spawn in an area called the Sargasso Sea. It's a shallow area out in the middle of the Atlantic, right near the Atlantic Ridge. Now, that's a saltwater area, of course, and these are freshwater animals. There is something called nostophilia. It's a biological term, and what it is, it's an instinctive urge in animals that compels them to return to their remote homeland. So we've got these eels. They go out from the lake, from the freshwater lakes, out to the saltwater. They spawn. The baby eels are born. They live for about a year until they grow strong enough, and they swim back through the Atlantic West to the streams and up the streams and into the lakes and ponds in North America, and then 20 years later they repeat the cycle. So they go freshwater to saltwater to freshwater. What's fascinating is there are eels in Europe, and they do the exact same thing. They go swim down the streams, out to the Atlantic. They swim west, the Sargasso Sea, where they meet up with their cousins from North America. They spawn, and then they swim home again. So we have two families of eels that are both freshwater that swim out to the saltwater to spawn. It seems to me that the most obvious explanation for this is there's a common origin, and that at one point that origin was a freshwater habitat, perhaps a continent above sea level. And when the continent sank, these eels were able to survive. They fled to the nearest continent which had fresh water. But this nostophilia, this instinctive urge to return to their remote homeland, drives them back to Sargasso Sea to spawn every year.
Just like the salmon returning to the place where they were born, swimming upstream. Just
Exactly.
like the nurse sharks that leave the Atlantic, come up the St. Lawrence River, up the Rimouski River, freshwater.
Exactly, the instinctive urge. And we have the same thing with the Caterpillar butterfly on the northern coast of South America in Guyana. Every April, tens of thousands of these beautiful yellow butterflies swim north out to the mid-Atlantic, where they circle around and around and around as if over a continent or a landmass they expect to be there, until eventually, out of exhaustion, they drop into the sea and die.
Wasn't the Sargasso Sea also where Christopher Columbus reported a lot of strange activity?
Right. There's a lot of weeds and a lot of still water. A lot of the Bermuda Triangle is partly there. It's a shallow area that is sort of in the middle of nowhere that defies a lot of explanation. It's very quiet there. But yeah, I think what's going on there is that is part of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and just as the eels go out to fulfill their ancient instincts, so these butterflies do the same thing.
Could it be coincidence?
I suppose so. I always have my characters say something in almost every book, and that is that they don't believe in coincidence. I think if we're going to be thinking rational, analyzing human beings, that it's too easy to say, it's just coincidence.
All right, let me ask you this.
I guess sometimes it is coincidence, but when you have that many things, I'd like to find the explanation.
All right, let me ask you this. What do the experts say?
There are no experts on this because there, what field of study would Atlantis fall into?
Well,
history, I suppose, but there's no written history, so historians don't spend any time on it. What class in school would you ever have studied Atlantis?
Philosophy.
In the classics, if you read Plato, might have touched on it. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit in history.
No, I was talking about your biological explanations. You know, the eels, the butterflies, the Sargasso Sea.
Yes, there is no. This happens all the time when experts don't have explanations for things. They sort of shrug and say, well. But in the defense of, say, the biologists, all they have is one piece of evidence. They have the eel, or they have the butterfly. They don't also have Charles Pigot's geological survey and Plato's writing and the writings from the Sumerians and cartographic evidence that I have. And again, the great thing, and for all your listeners who kids are going to college and are liberal arts majors, and you're thinking, I'm just throwing my money away on a liberal arts education, this is the kind of thing you can do if you have a liberal arts major. You can actually look in different areas of academia and pick and choose and maybe make an argument and reach a conclusion.
So what's your conclusion? You've given us the argument. Now give me the conclusion.
So my conclusion is there was some kind of advanced civilization in the Mid-Atlantic about 12,000 years ago. And when I say there's echoes of Atlantis, that's my title, there is still pieces of evidence around that support that. So we talked about the eels and the butterflies and historical record, but even sites such as, I'll go to the best one of all, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which dates back to about, here's the right number, 11,500 years ago, okay? And it's a fascinating site because up until recently, our kids were taught that civilization, quote-unquote, began about 6,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent in Mesopotamia. Well, this is civilization, and it doubles the age of the first estimate, almost 12,000 years ago, 11,500. It's a temple complex that what's fascinating about it is the center temple, the first temple built, is incredibly elaborate. It's a round temple. It dwarfs in scale and in scope the Stonehenge site in England, even though it's twice as old. Every generation built another temple further away from the center. And each temple proceeded to become less ornate, less elaborate, less skillfully built. It's almost like the first builders of the temple had advanced skills. Remember the date, 11,500 years ago, right after the calamity that destroyed Atlantis. But perhaps there were some survivors, not many, but some, and they made their way to various posts around the Atlantic Rim. And they were able to hold on to some of their technology. And, of course, one of the first things they would do after a calamity would be build a temple to the gods. But because the infrastructure was gone, because there were so few of them, they were unable to continue this civilization, this technology. And so after about 20 or 30 generations, we can see that they just petered out. They were unable even to build a simple temple, whereas 20 or 30 generations earlier, they had these elaborate temples. That's not the way the human condition usually works. Usually things evolve instead of devolve. Okay, so we have that particular site in Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which again is strong evidence that something happened around 11,500 years ago that was advanced and then faded away.
But why would that happen in Turkey when Turkey is at the other end of the Mediterranean Sea from where Atlantis was supposed to be?
There are a number of sites along the Atlantic Rim, the Basques in northern Spain. There's some sites in Central America, the Orkney Islands. There are things called red paint burial sites all along the north coast of New England and maritime Canada. All of these sites have evidence of a burst of technological advancement 10 to 12,000 years ago that faded away. I gave you the Göbekli Tepe site because it's the most dramatic of those sites.
So what kind of technological advances were seen, or we can say that were part of the Atlantean tale in the east coast of Canada and the United States?
Good. This is actually my favorite part of this conversation. There's something called the red paint culture, red paint burial sites. They date back to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, even 12,000 years ago. And the reason we call them red paint burial sites is quite obviously, this is obvious, but after people died, they were painted red and buried with their tools and weapons, the belief being that they would be reincarnated and that the red paint would serve as blood, which would allow them to be reborn. And we have these red paint burial sites all along the Atlantic Rim. We have them in Latin America, Central America. We have them, like I said, in maritime Canada. There's a site here in Massachusetts where I live along the mouth of the Merrimack River. We have them in the Orkney Islands. We have them in Scandinavia. We have them in northern Spain where the Basques are. And so what we have is all across the Atlantic. We have this common burial practice going back 10,000 years or even earlier. So the question is, did all of these disparate cultures independently come up with the idea, hey, we need to paint our dead bones red so they have blood in the next life? Or is there a common origin that spread throughout the Atlantic that explains why all these different cultures have that burial practice? You know, you asked earlier about coincidence. I suppose it's a coincidence. It would be a coincidence that everybody could have thought of this by themselves. But I think the more logical, commonsensical answer is that this was a one spot that it originated and then it spread.
Like religion.
Like religion. And so your specific question about technology, these red paint people, we know because they were buried with their weapons. They have incredibly advanced deep-sea fishing weapons that we don't see being reinvented again for 5,000 or 6,000 years later. These people are out doing whale hunting in the middle of the Atlantic, again, long before we expect the Native Americans to have done things like that. They had barbed harpoons. And we don't see that so much later. It was a technology that died out, and I think it originated someplace in the mid-Atlantic, spread, and then died.
You know, you and I have to say so long for tonight, but I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight, David. It's been a great pleasure having you on. I wish you much success with your book, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet back here in the X Zone to talk about other mysteries and other ancient and buried secrets.
Thank you so much, Rob. I really enjoyed being here.
You take care of yourself, my friend. Exonation, David Brody has been my guest this hour, www.davidbrodybooks.com. He is the author of Echoes of Atlantis. I'll be back on the other side of this news break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget to check out our good friends at 123 Ready TV to see the app that is available for each and every one of you. Once again, that's www.123readytv.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away. Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV
almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well, now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world. There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the 4 corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting the sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Afterlife voicemail system. If you're trying to reach heaven, please press 1. For Yahweh, press 2. For Muhammad, press 3. If you're trying to reach Nirvana, you're going about it all wrong, so we certainly can't help you. If you'd just like to leave a message, wait for the beep.
Hello, Heaven here, God speaking. Look, if you leave your name, number and prayer after the tone, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Please note that I try to answer all prayers in strict rotation, but sometimes the answer is no.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV shows.
Almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.